I'm afraid of no one. I'll go up and fight anyway. And that's it. Anyone can come down and step in that cage with me or any cage and see how they fare.
One of the most challenging parts of being a professional mixed martial artist is cutting or even maintaining one's weight. Over the years, we have heard several UFC standouts declare that their battle with the scale was every bit as challenging as the fight itself. Since the UFC and other organisations have introduced weight classes, more than a few fighters have experienced drastic body transformations. Of course, as we're about to see, there are other factors besides traditional dieting and exercise that have caused the appearance of some of MMA's biggest names to be significantly altered. So for this video, we'll be taking a look at a list of fighters whose appearance underwent drastic changes over the course of their careers. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 massive body transformations in UFC history. Number 10. Diego Sanchez. Since winning the inaugural season of The Ultimate Fighter, Diego the Nightmare Sanchez has become a fan favourite who has competed in the UFC for over 15 years. Throughout his lengthy career, the southpaw out of New Mexico has fought in 4 different weight classes. Sanchez has competed at middleweight, welterweight, lightweight and has even tried his hand at featherweight briefly in 2015. For those keeping track at home, the difference in maximum allowed weight from middleweight to featherweight is around 40 pounds. The former Fight of the Year winner has bounced around from weight class to weight class several times, which, as one might expect, has altered his physique quite a bit over the years. However, the long-time standout seems to have finally found a permanent home at welterweight, the division he has competed in since 2017. Number 9. Jared Cannonier. Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier is a hard-hitting middleweight who is currently in the midst of a 3-fight win streak. However, the knockout artist who originally hails from Dallas, Texas didn't always call 185 pounds his home. At one point, Cannonier weighed as much as 300 pounds, which he attributed to overindulging in comfort food. In fact, he began his UFC career at heavyweight, where he clashed with Sean Jordan back in January of 2015. After altering his diet and spending countless hours in the gym, the Killer Gorilla dropped down to light heavyweight. And in 2018, he would eventually make his middleweight debut. Over the course of his UFC journey, Cannonier has lost an incredible amount of weight and appears to be in tip-top shape. Number 8. BJ Penn. Hawaii's BJ Penn is one of only a handful of fighters to capture UFC titles in 2 different weight classes, and has defeated several MMA legends during his Hall of Fame career. Penn has long been a popular fighter amongst fans, due in part to his willingness to take on anyone, even if that opponent happened to be a much larger man. In fact, back in 2005, the Prodigy agreed to an open weight bout with future UFC champ Lyoto Machida. Though Penn spent the majority of his career at 155, for the Machida fight, he tipped the scales at 191 pounds, which was still considerably lighter than his opponent, whose official weight was listed at 225 pounds. The Hawaiian superstar also captured UFC gold at a welterweight, and even fought a few times at featherweight. Penn's physical appearance in the cage was as unpredictable as the man himself. Sometimes he looked shredded, other times not so much. Regardless, in his prime, the former lightweight king was one of the best in the business. Number 7. Alistair Overeem. Alistair the Demolition Man Overeem is a top-ranked UFC heavyweight who has been involved in 64 professional mixed martial art bouts. The talented striker has bested some of the top big men in the game, including folks like Junior Dos Santos, Frank Mir and Fabricio Werdum. Overeem actually began his career as a lean light heavyweight, before ultimately deciding to pack on a good deal of muscle and eventually move up a weight class. While he still looks in great shape, particularly for a man who turns 40 this May, pundits have noted his visible loss of muscle tone. According to the man himself, the muscle loss was a conscious decision, designed to help the former prize standout improve his cardio. Although quite frankly, testing positive for elevated testosterone back in 2012, along with the UFC implementing stricter drug testing since then, may also explain the transformation of his physique. Whatever the case may be, his physique has undoubtedly made some noticeable changes over the years, and that's why he holds a place on this list. Number 6. Conor McGregor. As the sport's biggest draw, the notorious Conor McGregor's illustrious career has been well documented. The former two-division champ began his UFC journey as a large featherweight, who didn't look particularly healthy on the scales. Looks aside, he enjoyed his best run of his career in the division, at least from a competitive standpoint. Following his time at featherweight, McGregor would spend the next few years hopping between lightweight and welterweight. And with that came drastic changes in his appearance. McGregor competed in 2 fights against Nate Diaz in the 170-pound division, before climbing down to lightweight to win his second world title. And now, the notorious one recently secured his second win at welterweight against Donald Cerrone this past January, not looking nearly as depleted since moving up. And now that he calls his own shots, the former champ won't be forced to make dramatic weight cuts anytime soon. After all, when you can bring in the kind of cash that Conor McGregor does, you can fight in whatever division you please. Number 5. Daniel Cormier. Daniel DC Cormier is a former Olympic wrestler who has gone on to become one of the most decorated fighters the UFC has ever seen. The former two-division champ's resume features wins over names like Stipe Miocic, Anderson Silva and Dan Henderson. While Cormier is clearly a world-class athlete, he doesn't have your stereotypical fighter's build. However, when the former Strikeforce Grand Prix winner decided to drop down to light heavyweight, we got to see what a leaner DC looked like, and more importantly, what he could do inside the cage. Cormier may have looked like a new man at light heavyweight, but he turned out to be the same dominant fighter and would go on to capture UFC gold in his new division. Number 4. Georges St-Pierre. As a fighter who has held UFC gold on 3 separate occasions, Georges Rush St-Pierre is widely considered as one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. The Canadian superstar has defeated a who's who of high-level fighters, including names like Matt Hughes, BJ Penn and Nick Diaz. Unlike many athletes on our list, St-Pierre is a man who has spent the overwhelming majority of his career competing in a single division. That division was welterweight. Moreover, the UFC Hall of Famer has always shown up for his fights in tremendous shape. However, in 2017, St-Pierre decided to move up a weight class and challenge Michael Bisping for the UFC middleweight gold, in what would be his only pro fight in the division. For the first time in his career, fans got to see how a larger GSP would fare inside the octagon. As it turned out, he fared quite well. In fact, the Canadian was able to submit Bisping in the 3rd round, thus adding his name to a short list of fighters who have held titles in multiple weight classes. Number 3. Kenny Florian. Kenny Kenflo Florian is one of several fighters who have made a name for themselves on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. Over the course of his UFC career, Kenny fought for a championship on 3 separate occasions, but unfortunately came up short each time. Florian would begin his UFC journey as a middleweight, and end up competing as a featherweight by the time it was all said and done. As a reminder, middleweights usually tip the scales at 185 pounds, while featherweights can't weigh more than 145 pounds for a title fight. In other words, Kenny cut a lot of weight. His struggles making the featherweight limit were well documented, and also made for a very depleted looking Ken Flo. The former title challenger fought twice at 145, before retiring due to injury in 2012. Number 2. Vitor Belfort. Brazilian sensation Vitor the Phenom Belfort had a lengthy UFC career that began in February of 1997 and lasted until his retirement at UFC 224 in May of 2018. During that span, he won the UFC 12 heavyweight tournament as well as the light heavyweight championship. Towards the latter part of his career, Belfort utilised testosterone replacement therapy, commonly referred to as TRT, which helped him maintain a bodybuilder-like physique. However, the controversial treatment was eventually banned in the UFC. As a result, with TRT off the table, Belfort's muscle tone notably diminished. He went from having one of the best physiques in MMA to a man who doesn't look much different to your average Joe. Following the ban of the controversial treatment, Belfort's career saw a steep decline. The Brazilian standout went on to go 2-4-1 in the UFC, before leaving in 2018. Number 1. Anthony Johnson. Anthony Rumble Johnson is a power puncher out of Dublin, Georgia, who collected more than a few first-round knockout victories during his UFC tenure. The now-retired MMA star had 2 shots at the lightweight title, but was unable to capture the gold. While he is perhaps best remembered as a light heavyweight competitor, Johnson was actually a welterweight when he first began competing. In truth, Rumble frequently struggled on the scale, and missed weight several times over the course of a career that saw him compete in 4 different divisions, which also included heavyweight. Following his retirement, Johnson had reportedly beefed up to around 280 pounds. However, he has recently decided to try and blaze the comeback trail and claims to weigh roughly around 235 pounds. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.